Greetings to all of those who are listening. I am Aki Vermon, and I'm here to be a host for the I Knew Man's Beginnings.
Greetings, I'm Papa Utu L. I'm here representing I New Life Global Ministries.
Greetings. My name is Antonio, and I'm here with my cousin.
Greetings, best of love. I'm Cruz. We're here in Anu Nation in the box.
So to set the tone for what we're about to present to you, we will start with a lyrical libation from the War Mill, presented to us by our Chief Jegna, Chief Yuya H. Hassan Anu.
Life is unrehearsed, it's real time, a journey to transfer. Child breathing at birth for the first time, mind overwhelmed by paths to serve, and so I dived in. Now I'm drowning in suffering. I'm questioning. See the new waves torture. Still mother killed the daughter. Young qualified mortal. Not dead, but mercy's born. Now I'm baptized in fire, and I'm calling you Father. Yeah. Jehovah, Abba, Eli, Yahweh, Allah, Jesus. I'm
Thank you. Now we'll present to you all a chapter out of the I Knew Way under the salvation model. And it reads, I knew hold themselves to a superior specification, regardless of what exists around them. Consider the experience of a flood when there's a deluge around you. The saving grace is that you do not allow it inside. If the water that is around the boat gets inside of it, the vessel will sink. There is a perfect example of what it means to be Anu. As Anu, we may find ourselves surrounded and even hovering above a deluge of cultural insanity. But as long as we do not ingest the collective crazy, we will stay afloat and earn heroic status through our own right. And so, with that being said, I would like to bring the first question to the elder on the call, which would be Abamari. Abamari, since you've been in a new, what has stuck out more to you, or what has benefited you more? What would you just say that is something that has really caught your attention that we do it within our new that is that stands out from any other thing that you've experienced thus far, and that has helped evolve you?
Greetings, greetings. Give thanks for allowing me to come on this platform and share my perspective about my annual experience. I guess in one word, that encapsulates a lot of things that Anu means to me is community. And community is brought out through our like-mindedness and the idea or the vision, us being able to see the vision, which would lead into really before I go too far, the mathematics for the day, and that would be wisdom, wisdom. And to wisdom is to emulate the wise words of the ones that came before us by also about acting and doing and speaking wisely about them. Or said another way, wisdom is the reflection of knowledge, who is the original man. And wisdom means to knowledge. So wisdom being the wise words and actions and ways of the original people, we add on to that and create our own culture. To wisdom is to bring about culture of freedom, which gives us the mobility mentally, physically, and spiritually to be what it is we are supposed to be as original people on the planet Earth. Culture brings about culture is our God, and it's brought about through our wise ways and actions that we add on to with one another. So, in short, your community is what allows your culture to be sustained. It allows for the spirit of the culture to be sustained and the vision of the culture to be sustained. And the culture, of course, reflects the wisdom of the people. You know, um, what kind of community is Anu? Well, Anu is a community that understands that culture is our way to salvation. Um, the way that we cultivate our mind, body, and spirit. We build our character within Anu is very important. A lot of people in the conscious and so-called cultural communities these days, they lack that sense of community because everyone is trying to best one another. That's what makes Anu different from a lot of different groups that I've seen, is that we're not trying to best one another. We're just trying to bring out the best in one another. And so that's a very, very important part of community, which sets Anu apart, and briefly, I'll let it go with that. But if there's any other questions that you want to ask me concerning that, please feel free.
Yes, yes, I would like to add on. Add on. So, in respects to community, um, when we involve ourselves with community efforts, there's this almost like this double sidedness. It's like what are we here to give the community, and what it is we want to receive from community. So, if you could express your opinion on those two topics, is what is it you're here to provide to the Onion community, but what it is also that you're looking forward to receive from the Onion community.
Well, what I've been receiving from the Anu community is support, encouragement, um, directives, you know, and just pieces of the vision that will enable me to play my part. What would I want to do in terms of playing my part? I just want to be the best that I can, help add on to the community in whatever positive ways that I can, whether it is a building initiative, whether it's creating or being a part of disseminating the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of Anu to the babies and to the elders. You know, um, so everything that we learn to apply in our actual lives that's in the positive are the things that we as Anu seek to bring to the community that we want to build and destroy all of the negative things that we may have accumulated from living in a secular world, being a part of a broader social society. So there's healing involved in that, and that's one of the things that community allows for and facilitates is that healing that most of us have to or need, because of the negative influences that we've been exposed to and living in a secular world, a modern world such as this.
Okay, okay, okay. I give thanks for your answer. Achi Antonio and or Baba Cruz, do you guys have any questions based on the community to ask Abamar?
Yeah, man. Give thanks for the opportunity to dive and discuss. With reference to community and the nation building, would you say that Anu has given you some new tools as far as the outlook, just as well as the way that you would look execute, injecting yourself to community? Because I know that we've all, of course, of life become tethered to different communities. Like, what do you see as the difference with our community and ministry compared to what it is that you would have been doing prior to this?
Good question. That it's the persistence and consistency in 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 the actions of the Jegnas of the community that facilitate what I knew is. Like they say, people make the world go round. Well, it's the people within the community of Anu that makes Anu what it is. Like if you go back to the who we are, we are people who seek that higher knowledge and that higher lifestyle. We we don't strive to remain in the same uh, poverty mind states that we may have been raised in, in that secular world. We don't seek to remain in the same unhealthy ways of thinking, in that mode. We seek to constantly strive to do better for ourselves so that we can be better for our community. And that really sticks out because like I mentioned before, in many other so-called communities, it's really an arena for egoic competition based on how much you know and or think you know, how much you can regurgitate. And I knew is more about what you can do with what it is you know, not how much you know. You understand? So that that's a jewel in itself because having knowledge and doing nothing with it, you may as well not have it. You may as well be the fool. Well, you are the fool. Like Brother Zach likes to quote, "You're a goddamn fool," because you're rejecting your inheritance. You got that by way of inheriting it, and now you're it's almost like blasphemy or having when you ask for something and you get it, and then you disregard it as if it's not something that you need or ever wanted. So within I knew, there's a rugged side of it that I really appreciate in these times where a man is being attacked for not being soft. You know what I mean? In certain situations, or holding our ground. It takes other men really around you to help to solidify your and validate you, in terms of your ways and actions. Like, you know, on the community piece, many of us men, we don't we don't have that brotherhood to be like, this is what happened today in my life, brother, and it's really disturbing me. Once we start going down the lane of what's unsettling to our spirit, um, it's not well received. You know, we are expected to just be the receptacle of a lot of stress and burden without ever having an opinion, about what it is that or the role that we have to play as men. It's just kind of a just do what you're supposed to do and don't say anything. And it's funny because that's one of the chief things that you'll hear in a situation where there's a sense of domestic abuse, where someone's got to sit in the corner, so they're trying to domestically, well, first of all, they're trying to domesticate the original men, of the planet Earth, and then they're trying to subjugate us to a foreign way of thinking. And if we're not assimilated to that way of thinking, then we become the outcasts of society, which is not, in my view, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Looking at what society has to offer you, and going back to wisdom. Our wise elders separated themselves from society because of the same reasons that their roles were being opted in terms of how men were supposed to conduct their households and their communities. An example I would give is that um, you know whenever we as a people were subjected to or lived in foreign lands, right? We were subjected to the scrutiny of our worship or our reverence for our deity and our creator, you know, and still to this day, in many ways, we are, you know. So, and in that regard, I use the historical account of the expelling of the Moors from Europe again, and how they had to design their living quarters, in order to still uh, keep their culture alive. That was wise. They built their living quarters in such a way so as they were not able to be observed by the people who were coming through the streets trying to check and make sure that all of these different uh, Moors who had moved into Europe as Muslims and Hebrews were not observing their original way of life or their culture, which links them to their deity. So and that's like domesticating one, in a sense. And we seek to be yoked with the Most High and not bound to any mundane or earthly society, except for us, the one that we build for ourselves, which is to be a reflection of the kingdom in heaven.
Give thanks for that. Give thanks for that share. Um, because what we realized is that being in a new, and just from my experiences, most people don't have a community that corrects them, right? So most communities will indulge in you based on how much knowledge you have. And one key thing I want to say that I want to point out that you said was we're not about just gathering knowledge. We're about, okay, well, from what you have received, what have you applied? We're not here to just collect knowledge and be like, oh, okay, there's, but what have you built from it? What are you producing from it? Or what are you contributing to from what you have received? And so with that, I would like to shift things to another one of our well known brothers, you know what I'm saying? Blessed love, blessed love, blessed love. You already know. I call them the Bahama brothers. um so my question for you, Abba Cruz, is during your experience, what is one key thing that you could highlight that has helped you evolve and something that is basically contributed to your evolution as a new man?
Yes. Blessed love. Yeah, man. Give thanks. And it's so many things. So many things. But one of the key things definitely was the continued need for self-assessment. The understanding where you were or where you are at every stage of your development, and also finding refuge in the vulnerability of your community. So, for instance, we've had recent conversations where I may have rendered a certain point of view when objectivity was offered to me with reference to what the creed of Atma actually is. I realized that my objection or my point of view may be flawed. Being able to sit with the Anu Way foundations and the 14 keys, using that as my rule of thumb, it leaves no dissolve or delusion of belief. It's truth. And having the faith that I will be living in that process, knowing that I'm being blessed in every which way from the time that I've joined Anu on being able to be in contact with Anu calculation before I was even privileged to join. One of the things that has been pressed was can you reach for your higher levels of optimization? Continually striving to be your highest level of potential. Are you settling for what can be considered low lying with reference to the things that you're enacting? It's experience and by and large the experiences of what it is that you're doing for your family and your community, or are you pushing the limits to make sure that you reach your highest level of potential based on what is being important to you? So, for instance, when you spoke about um, accumulation of knowledge, are am I placing it into work? I'm misrepresenting myself. You see, am I being sure that I'm a beacon on every step that I'm taking in Anu? I look at the references to what an Anu, the qualities of Anu man is. Am I in the same position that I was however long ago to present with those requirements? Am I able to ask my brothers, what do you think about this process that I'm going through this time? Do you see me still faltering, pivoting on this point? Just as taking constructive criticism, my brother may say to me, hey, I don't know if you're realizing that I'm actually falling here. Knowing that we have a rule of thumb on a community that does that. I never forget when I coming into Anu, when I had a one-on-one with Chief said, a lot can happen in certain periods of time which are relatively short. But the efficiency of it, and I'm paraphrasing it, but the efficiency of it will also be determined on you being around very good brothers, brothers who are not easy, brothers who are very direct, and all of us can attest to this. From the time that we've come as active with Anu, there's always been an intention in every single conversation that we've ever had. There's always the intention of pulling from that conversation something that takes us to the next level. There's always a step, and for that, I'm continually grateful. And I can actually scope what my forecasts are. I can see if I do fall where I may have pivoted, where I didn't apply Anu calculations thoroughly, where I was not ordering my step as it says 14, where I didn't apply truth. I see those processes. For that, it's like I said, man, being a man in this time and submitting yourself to the will of the Creator and a community that's hedged on the principles of that is something that's beyond measure, totally beyond measure.
Okay. So then I have a question for you. What are your thoughts on the I Knew Education Initiative?
Oh yeah, again, that's I know education initially in the education initiative and the augmentation of it again speaks to optimization. It says in the Anui Foundation that we should strive to be our higher selves in every moment. We should never settle. So even if we're operating professional, your community is growing. Your community's needs are evolving. And you, especially us as our men, need to take the responsibility to actually fulfill, satisfy what those needs are. And if you're looking at food, clothes, and shelter, you're looking at resources. How are resources acquired. They are acquired by having knowledge and the markets move. So where we are now in 2021 is different than if we had launched ANU in 1960. The needs have changed. So when we look at the expansion of education, we look at it as just for the here and now and gain profession. We're looking at it as amassment of tools we to actually further our nation, because we're not just looking at our nation now to the demise of our flesh. We're looking at our nation for 7 generations down. So we must press ourselves. We must know at 60 years old, when we're blessed to reach those age points or those points of life, I'd say, that we're still pressing. We're still looking to gain more specializations. We're still looking to learn more, not just about ourselves, but one of the key components of being a new man is being up on current affairs, what's happening globally. It may we have to go and form an annual chapter in Australia because those brothers are in need there. It may mean we have to actually bring certain things Wall Street in here. So how do we actually plot these processes? That means we need economists. It goes far beyond what the standard clergy, as it's stated in the way, looks like. It goes far beyond what the standard so-called cultural community would look like. The Hebrews. And in the massment of Hebrews, we have everything from tax collection to governance, to religious or rabbinical order, rather. Each of these tribes represent a certain segment of which community economics, which is the flow of resources in the homestead, and in this case, in and out of the community, which you mean for us. For me, educational augmentation is far more than just the education, it's knowledge which will evolve for the next generations of our new. You muted, brother.
Give thanks for that, Abu Cruz. I said that any of the other brothers have a question based on what has been presented to us from Abu Cruz.
Sure, I have a question. I wanted to ask, on the same topic, the education, what would you say your education was looking like before I knew? How did, this initiative on those educational goals?
Yeah, very powerful. My education goals before were very short reached. Short reaching, this is on thinking about it as an employer to an employee perspective. I've always been interested in entrepreneurship and enterprising, but I looked at it now moving beyond me, my homestead. What I'm looking at education now as the tools and the amassment of education as is an expansion of the community, being a pillar of everything that our community comes in contact with. And the only way we do that is to be the highest level of organization. So we need to be rolling out engineers. We need to be rolling out bankers. We need to be rolling out doctors. We need to help people understand the law. These are the essential requirements for a fully functional community, a fully functional kingdom. This is the kingdom of Anu. So back then, I was never thinking of that. I was thinking along the lines, maybe the lobbyist group, get into policy making, but policy for who? Who is policy for? Is it edifying the person who is traditionally known as one who hampers the will of God? Someone who stops the process of the violation of the Creator and what is intended for the original black man to hold? Someone who hampers knowledge, wisdom, understanding, which is the foundation of all things, right? Knowledge. So when I look at family, what hampers family? What hampers family in most cases is knowledge of self. And the knowledge of self comes by knowing the knowledge of what all needs of our community are. Mm-hmm. So I was very excited. Now coming into contact with calculation, I'm being refined. As Chief said in the annual spiritual training, you move through those various realms, those quadrants, and you have to understand and appreciate the elements, but you want to be centered so that you can be to that source, allowing the fire to corrupt me and find me to move into water to be actually transformed. This is the community now. We did a segment on redemption and understanding that in most cases our short-sightedness is a result of being narcissistic and selfish, mainly because that's something that was handed to us and seeded to us from our families. And now knowing that there's a major difference between family and relative, many people were just operating exclusively as relatives, had no intention of actually helping us to elevate. But in Anu, that's who we are. We're assisting each other. We're lifting each other up. We're building each other up. And how do we do that? It's in the Anu Way foundations. The first thing is knowledge. Moving forward, the only way we can execute it is knowledge. Go into the second economics. First thing is mentioned is knowledge. How are we actually managing? Again, the process is the definition is economics is the flow of resources in of the homestead. In this case, now we're applicable to community. Economics for us is the flow of resources in and out of the community. And again, foundation that is knowledge, education.
Sure, sure. Just to touch on what Mario built on earlier, with, wisdom. We're dealing with behind that knowledge, you know, and this is one of the core tenets of being an Amimad. To apply what it is that you're learning, I definitely have to model what it is that you're trying to teach. Otherwise, you're just talking. And when you're speaking level, those different components needed to run a nation. It brought back to mind a segment that Chief had, where he'd spoken about how a lot of these culture communities would talk about take over the system or overthrow the system. And Chief was like, does anybody know how to operate a train? Like, anybody know how to install a plumbing system for the entire city? Like, you want to take over the system, can you actually run a system? Can you actually build a nation? And if you can build a nation from scratch, then why try to take over one that is inclined?
Yeah, powerful. And just to build on what you said just now, in that same vein, something that Chief also stressed on different segments, which was don't build anything unless you can actually defend it or protect it. With everything that we build, we must be able to maintain it. And how do you maintain? Maintain by understanding forecasts. What are our needs? And of course, being married to Yah, coming into the Anu community, being tethered to the will of Yah, the will of us as people from heaven, which is Anu, people from heaven. One of the things that we cannot lose sight of is we come together to create something. That is our purpose. We're coming together to create something. Now, what it is that we're creating, this is where our tenants come in now. Why are we creating? And this is where the tenants come in. We come together as a collective. When your homestead all together, my homesteads all come together. We sit down and we plan. We make our preparations, put them in place, water our steps. And we look, this is where we are now. Now it's time of a master's in engineering. Okay, now you need to move over to finance because we need to work this out. Okay, or you get into farming now. You need to understand irrigation systems because the droughts are becoming more consistent. Things of the sort. So it's just understanding and plotting, and knowledge is the thing that brings it forth. Many civilizations have failed because when something new is introduced to them, they weren't equipped to handle it. That's something known from time and iniquity. Most of them failed as a result of that. They could not plot and project what their enemy what actually was, even if he was standing right in the front of their face and being accepted in the communities. So that there speaks to creation. Creation is not love. This is what Mari was referring to earlier. You know.
Give thanks for that. Um, and it's that is a very practical thing too. Many people want to build so-called nations, or they want to just be a part of a community, but a community has needs, and a lot of times the personnel within the community are not up to standard what the community needs. So then therefore there comes the education requirements, like, yo, what we need as a community is this. Then therefore it must at times call back a higher level of education or a higher level skill set for a person to achieve or to go receive in order to be of useful need to the community. Because as we say, um Anu is a moving organism. So we're working together, but the only way we're going to stay together is we're constantly growing, constantly evolving. Is that means a lifelong education? No, it just means that you must be in a position to be of optimal use for what it is that your character, skills, or traits are, and that's something that we strive to anew. So, to now address our one of our most creative brothers within our new, you know what I'm saying? Uh, the creative man himself. So my question to you, Ike Antonio, is this: since you've gone through the orientation process, since you've been exposed to it, what benefits have you received from it, and how useful is the process itself to building our new man?
Yeah, man. I would say, first of all, our crews had done earlier, we start with the what, you know. What the orientation is it's basically helping you to find your bearings in the new environment that you're coming into. And that is very powerful in itself because it helps you to define not only what you are in reference to Anu, also what you are in general. What are your skills? What are your strong points? What do you need to work on? And it's usually different than, Chief is known for switching up the format because he doesn't want you to get comfortable. Uh, so even when you come in, the whole format is going to be designed to test you and stretch you and see where your weak points are, where your strong points are. We're going to help you to strengthen those points, and we're going to help you find your strong points. So that was one of the major takeaways from the orientation. And it also helps you to become familiar with Anu thought, just understand or not this is something that gels with you or not. So with our orientation that we went through, we dealt with the 15 keys, and we dealt with it in reference to how you move as an Anubian. You know what I mean? So that was very opening. It helps you to be more studious, which is one of the main tenets of being a man. And it helps you to basically feel for each other and commune with your brothers and see who it is that you're going to be building with in the future.
You muted,
Yeah.
brother.
My,
Yeah, give thanks to the brothers. Uh, being that you say during your process of orientation, and you dealt with the 14 keys, correct? So, out of which key do you think you developed most as going through that orientation process that you can say now I'm stronger here than I was after the orientation process than I was before I came into the process?
Uh, this one did make sense. I'd say the major one is truth. Just speaking and moving throughout my life with less of a filter. That's helped me to even strengthen the other keys, like all balance, reciprocity, just being able to communicate with people in a much authentic way has made me a stronger person, has made me a stronger mind, and for me to understand just, how far I stretch myself and how far I need to be stretched. Because if you can't properly assess yourself, if you don't have truth, you can't properly assess yourself. You can't properly assess yourself, then you're going to be super inactive and you're going to wonder why things you're doing is, coming to fruition.
What you said is so and to me it's so much truth in it, right? So I'm gonna give you my experience of what I've discovered, because truth is also something that I feel as though I've grown significantly in. It's just as a character trait. But what I've come to learn and experience about truth is this: the closer you move to truth, the easier it is to identify truth. right? So that means the closer that when you're at something that the truth emits from you, the spirit of truth then begets you. And then you can easily identify when someone who's not speaking of truth, living of truth, or have truth in their movement. And so that's the beauty of being around Anu. It's such an authentic way of being that once you are orchestrating or moving outside of that space, then it's easily to see those who are not moving in that direction, or they're not moving with that sincerity. So I just want to give thanks for that share, because we all are growing, and truth is something that we all have to have as a dire characteristic.
Yeah, if I may add on, it's interesting how all of our dissertations, in terms of our experience, have tied into one another because you know, brother, I mean Aki Abba Cruz, pointed out that within the community, he took a lot away from the education augmentation piece. Um, that's something that our Jegna saw in his vision of development of the community, in as a way of making the community better through making its members be better, and identifying our strengths and weaknesses in those ways. Or I'll say it another way: your community will help you to identify your strengths and weaknesses better than you can sometimes assess for yourself, because there's traits that you may not be able to see because you're the one that's displaying those traits. And your community can identify those things and be like, hey, kind of like what Baba Randy brought up before about if you got something on your nose or on your face, your brother can let you know it's there, and you don't have to keep walking around as if everything is okay when you gotta some things to take care of. So and then the orientation process aspect of it is definitely a way to allow one to experience what's expected of them insofar as what they're able to absorb from Anu doctrine and teach back to people. Like through my orientation process, um, it was said that we must be able to teach one of these 14, at least one of these 14 keys to a child. And that just makes the most sense. If you can't teach it to a child, then what are you doing? You know? So these very critical and simple but uh, necessary principles found within the 14 keys that facilitate the nation building of that new nation. Um, they In examining those things, you see how a community can be rightly erected. And just examining each and every one of those 14 keys or those 14 principles. You know, and the education augmentation. That's one of those things that again, it brings a certain level of truth, because now you have to go back and look at yourself like, yo, what have I done? You have to be truthful with yourself and with your community if you want to be a part of a community. Myself, I didn't know exactly how I wanted or how I should contribute. I know there was a lot of things that I wanted to do, but um, everything is not for everyone. We'll say it like that. And everyone has their role to play within a community. For instance, Brother Vermont, um, when you wisdom your knowledge about culture when it comes to agriculture, you bring the understanding to the people that there are certain seasons and certain things that you have to look for uh, in your surroundings to make you a better agriculturalist. You know what I mean? You may have to uh, rearrange or redistribute soil a certain way, or whatever, just to get the desired crop. You may not get the desired crop that you need the first time you plant, and you have to plant knowing this. So even in that, it shows that it's two things I want to take from that. Like in knowing that we're planting the seed, we also understand that every seed is not gonna blossom, and we also understand that um, things will produce in their season after their likeness and after that kind, right? So this is what Anu is to me, as a community of people who have found ourselves in one another, meaning we share the same vision, we have the same aspirations and inclinations toward community, and we know what must be done to facilitate that vision and protect whatever is that we build within that vision, you know, and you know to be totally honest and truthful, again back to that truth, if we think that we've got it all when we obviously don't have it at all. When it's a little bit of it's too much ignorance and too much arrogance in the mix. We have to be humble and realize where we're at as a people, and your community will humble you in that way. And if they're honest with you, if it's a real community, they're gonna be honest enough with you to tell you, brother, that's not right what you're doing. Like you mentioned earlier, brother Antonio, it's not right what you're doing. You need to straighten that up. Sister, that's not right how you living. You need to straighten that up. And it's because we care, but at the same time, we understand that this is not an environment where people are going to baby you or walk you by the hand as a man. You know, you should be walking direct in your manhood when you come in. You know.
Yeah. I really wanted I really like what you just said, Mark, and what it ties into what I was going to share in closing, right? And it was a piece in the I New Way that speaks of culture, and I'm gonna share these two paragraphs, and I'm gonna show you how it ties into exactly what you just said. It says, "It is our culture that perpetuates our own continuum of codes and mores. Our culture tells us what is allowed and what is not. How can culture survive if there are no ethics and regulations that ensure the very spirit of the culture is not violated? Culture let us know what is important to sustain to ensure our survival as a group. The group becomes such because of the prolonged presence of a code that keeps the organism desirous of what it needs with a unanimous vote. We must always strive to be successful and noted inside of our own culture. It is not relevant to a new individual what someone of an alien culture has to say of them, whether good or bad. We are judged by our own. We should always look at ourselves through the eyes of our great Anu archetypes. Our goal is never towards integration with the secular environment. So that goes to what you were saying. Anu speaks life into Anu through truth. So when one sees you are falling short or one sees that you need help, we will speak that truth into you. We're not worried nor concerned about what someone outside of Anu thinks of us. Because within Anu, we earn our manhood in Anu. Because there's many, I would say, adult males that have been classified men in this Western culture, but not have yet showed proved their manhood. So with that, I would just like to say these few things in closing. And I want to give thanks to all of you who volunteered to share and to help build once again in this uh, the beginnings of the I New Man segment. I would like to share this about I New. And they say many are called, few are chosen. So I like to say that in this, we are the few, we are the I Do. And that I give thanks for all of those who are viewing and listening. And we'll see you soon. Give thanks.